The Sept's stone swallowed sound the way snow swallowed footsteps. Above them, the mob thundered against the doors, fists and boots and the ugly swell of voices demanding blood. Down here, the air was cooler, damp with centuries of incense and rot. Lantern light trembled in the hands of a frightened Septon who had been dragged along because he knew the undercroft's turns better than any soldier. "Faster," Eddard said, low and relentless. Robert Baratheon descended like a wounded bear refusing to limp. Every step tugged at his torn shoulder, every breath rasped, but he did not allow himself to be carried. He had been carried once today, and the memory of it burned hotter than pain. His warhammer dragged in one hand, bumping stone, the sound heavy and patient as a drumbeat. Cersei Lannister's chains clinked softly as Sandor Clegane shoved her along. The hound's face was hard with disgust. At her, at the Sept, at the city, at having been made a pawn in a game he hated. Cersei did not stumble. She moved with measured grace, as if even being hurried through a hidden stair was something she had planned. Barristan Selmy brought up the rear, blade drawn, white cloak dirted at the hem by the undercroft's damp. He glanced up the stair behind them, listening to the mob's roar fade and return, like waves finding new stones to crash against. "Left," the Septon whispered, voice shaking. Then straight. "There is an old door." A shout echoed behind them. Too sharp, too close, and Eddard's blood tightened. Not the mob, not outside. A guard's voice, muffled by stone. There in the stair. Barristan did not hesitate. He turned, sword up, and the lantern light caught his face. Grim, calm, resigned in the way men became when they accepted that duty would not stop until it killed them. "Go," Barristan said, voice firm. Eddard looked at him and hated the city for making this necessary. "Stay alive," he said. Barristan's mouth tightened. "That is rarely in the gods' plan," he replied. And then he was gone into shadow up the stair, white cloak flashing once like a fallen star. Eddard pushed forward, hand on Robert's arm. "This way." Robert jerked away instinctively. He hated being guided, but he followed because the roar above was not the only threat now. The Septon led them through a low corridor where stone arches pressed close and carved faces of forgotten saints watched with blank disapproval. Rats skittered away from their boots. Water dripped from a crack overhead and landed on Robert's hammer with a soft, mocking tap. "Your city?" Cersei murmured, voice soft and pleased. Robert's head snapped toward her, eyes blazing. "Say one more word," he growled, "and I'll leave you for them." Cersei's smile was faint. "You won't," she said. "You need me, even now." Eddard felt the truth of it like a weight. Cersei was poison, but she was also leverage. Without her, Robert had only rage and rumor. With her, he had a chance, however thin, at proof. They reached the old door, heavy oak swollen with damp, iron bands rusted. The Septon fumbled with a ring of keys, hands shaking so badly he dropped them once. The clink loud in the tight corridor. Robert's jaw clenched. "Open it," he snarled. The key turned with a reluctant groan. The door cracked open and a breath of different air slipped in, stale, sewer-tainted, colder, carrying the distant stink of the city's underbelly. Eddard pushed it wider and saw a tunnel beyond, sloping downward, walls slick with moisture, the floor uneven with old stone and dirt. The darkness ahead felt like a mouth. "Where does it lead?" Eddard demanded. The Septon swallowed. To the back streets," he whispered. "Near the river. Old drains." "Good," Eddard said, though nothing about it was good. They entered the tunnel, the door thudding shut behind them. For a moment, the muffled roar above dimmed, and the only sounds were their breaths, their boots, Cersei's chains, and the distant drip of water. Robert's breath came hard. "They tried to kill me," he said, not to anyone, but to the stone itself, as if he needed to hear it down here where the mob could not drown him out. Eddard's voice was low. "They will try again," he said. Cersei laughed softly. "Of course they will," she murmured. "Now the city has tasted it." Robert's knuckles whitened on the hammer haft. "I will make it choke," he whispered. Eddard did not answer, because he could not decide whether that vow was salvation or ruin. The tunnel ended in filth. A rusted grate was levered up from below, and the smell that poured in made even Sandor Clegane's scarred mouth twist. The alley beyond was narrow, slick with damp, and lined with leaning walls that sweated grime. Somewhere nearby, water ran through a drain with the sound of a whisper that never stopped. Eddard pushed up first, ice half-drawn, eyes scanning. He saw gold cloaks waiting. Half a dozen men in yellow, spears angled, faces hard and wary. At their head stood Jacelyn Bywater, one-eyed gaze fixed like a nail. Bywater stepped forward. "My lord," he said to Eddard, then turned his eye to Robert. "Your grace." Robert climbed out after Eddard, grimacing as his shoulder protested. He looked around the alley with disgust and fury. "This is what my city makes me crawl through," he muttered. Cersei emerged next, chains clinking, held by Sandor's grip like a child dragged from trouble. She blinked once at the alley's stink and then smiled faintly, as if amused that the mighty Red Keep could be escaped through a sewer like any tavern. Bywater's jaw tightened at the sight of her. "We can move you to the postern gate," he said, voice clipped. "Quietly, the front streets are a riot." Eddard nodded. "Now," he said. Bywater barked an order. Gold cloaks shifted, forming a moving wall. They began to push out of the alley, cloaks brushing stone, spear points angled outward. The twang came like a snap of fate. Eddard's head turned a fraction before his mind caught up, too late to stop the first bolt. It struck a gold cloak in the shoulder. The man's scream sharp and wet. A second bolt hissed past Robert's ear, close enough that Eddard felt the air move. "Down!" Eddard roared. Robert did not go down. He surged forward instead, warhammer coming up as if he meant to smash the sky. "Show yourself!" he thundered, voice echoing off close walls. Bywater's one eye snapped upward. On the rooftop above, a crossbowman crouched behind a chimney, face hidden by a hood. The man reloaded with quick, practiced movements. "Archers!" Bywater barked, but there were none. The alley was too tight. The city did not give clean answers. Eddard moved on instinct, ice coming up. The crossbowman loosed again, aiming for Robert's chest this time. Eddard stepped into the line of it and slashed. Steel catching bolt, knocking it aside into the wall where it splintered. Sandor snarled and shoved Cersei behind him. "Stay behind me, cunt!" he growled, and the venom in his voice did not bother to care who heard it. Cersei's eyes gleamed. "How gallant!" she murmured. A gold cloak hurled a spear upward. It clanged off stone and fell uselessly. The crossbowman cursed and shifted, scrambling along the roofline. Bywater grabbed two men. "Up!" he snapped. "Get him!" They ran for a nearby stairwell entrance, a crooked door that led to the building's interior. Eddard saw the trap in it immediately. Doors in the city were always traps, but leaving the chute or alive was worse. "Go," Eddard said to Bywater. "I'll cover the king." Bywater did not argue. He turned to Robert. "Your grace, move. Now." Robert's eyes burned with refusal, but another bolt thudded into the stone where his head had been a heartbeat before, and even his pride understood the language of near death. He moved, snarling, hammer raised, shoulders hunched, as if he could make himself smaller by rage alone. They pushed through the back streets toward the postern gate, gold cloaks shoving aside startled citizens, stark men forming a tight ring. The city here was quieter, but it was the quiet of corners where knives were sharpened, not the quiet of safety. Eddard glanced back once and saw Bywater's men dragging the crossbowman down from a roof, hood ripped away. The man's face was ordinary, too ordinary, eyes wide with fear. "Who paid you?" Bywater demanded, voice harsh. The man spat blood and laughed once. "The realm," he choked, and then a gold cloak slammed him against the wall hard enough to rattle teeth. Eddard turned away. The same answer, always the same answer, as if murder could be made righteous by naming it the realm. They reached the postern gate. It opened onto a narrow yard inside the Red Keep's outer wall, guarded by men with tense faces and drawn swords. When Robert passed through, the gate slammed shut behind him with a heavy finality. The city's noise muffled again, distant and hungry. Robert leaned on his hammer for a breath, breathing hard. "They shoot at me in alleys now," he rasped. "Like a rabbit." Eddard's voice was low. "They shoot at you because they cannot cage you," he said. Cersei smiled faintly behind her chains. "Or because they know you will cage yourself," she murmured. Robert's head snapped toward her, murder in his eyes. Eddard stepped between them again because that was his role now. Shield not only against enemies, but against the king's own worst instincts. "Inside," Eddard said. "We do not stand in yards." Robert's jaw clenched. He turned and strode deeper into the keep, leaving the stink of sewer behind, carrying the stink of betrayal with him like a cloak. The war room felt too small for the war it held. Maps were spread across the table, Crownland's roads, the Blackwater's curve, the city's gates marked like wounds. Sealed letters lay in a scattered heap like thrown knives. Dragonstone's stag wax, Riverrun's trout, lesser lords begging for guidance or offering excuses. The room smelled of wax and sweat and old stone warmed by too many bodies. Robert stood with his cloak thrown back, bandage visible, red spreading at the edge where the wound had reopened again. His face was pale, but his eyes were fierce, the kind of fierce that did not ask whether a thing was possible, only whether it could be forced. Bywater reported without softness. "The watch is divided," he said. "Half of them took coin before I ever had the command. I put men under guard. I've hanged 3 already." Robert's mouth twisted. "Only 3?" he snarled. "Bywater's one." I did not blink. "I'm not finished," he said. Varys stood near the wall, hands folded, expression sorrowful. "Hanging too many too quickly can turn the watch into martyrs," he murmured. Robert's gaze snapped. "Martyrs?" he barked. "They're thieves in cloaks." "They're also fathers and sons," Varys replied gently. "And the city adores a sob story." Robert's fingers flexed, itching for his hammer. "Then the city can sob over corpses," he growled. Eddard cut in before the rage could spill. "We need the city calm," he said, "or at least contained." Robert's laugh was bitter. "Contained," he echoed. "Like you tried to contain me?" Eddard held his gaze, refusing to flinch. "Like we contained you from smashing the Sept doors open," he said quietly. "Yes." Robert's eyes burned, but he did not argue, because he remembered the moment. He remembered how close he had come to giving the mob what it wanted, proof of madness. The door opened, and Barristan Selmy entered with silent authority. His forearm was wrapped where the cut bled earlier, but his posture was unbroken. He looked tired for the first time Eddard could remember, tired in the eyes rather than the bones. "The High Septon is furious," Barristan said simply. "He calls the bolt sacrilege. He calls the riot a stain. He calls for the Queen to be placed under the Faith's protection until judgment is complete." Robert's face contorted. "Protection," he snarled, "so they can lose her in a crowd and call it the God's will." Barristan's mouth tightened. "Possibly," he admitted. Varys's voice was soft. "The Faith loves sanctuaries," he murmured. "Sanctuaries are convenient places for enemies to hide behind righteousness." Robert slammed his fist into the table. "She stays with me," he roared. "She stays in my keep, in my chains under my eyes." Eddard felt the trap again. The more Robert insisted, the more the city would frame it as tyranny. But letting the Faith take Cersei was worse. Cersei would vanish behind Sept walls, and the realm would never hear her speak. Only rumors of what she might have said. Bywater's voice was blunt. "If she stays," he said, "the Sept will riot again, and next time they'll come with knives instead of stones." Robert's eyes flashed. "Then we put knives in their hands first," he snarled. Eddard's jaw clenched. "No," he said. "We do not start a war with the Faith inside the city." Robert turned on him, rage flaring. "Everything is war," he spat. "They made it war when they shot at me beneath their gods. Eddard held the line. "Then choose your battles," he said. "You cannot fight the Faith, the Lions, and your brothers all at once." The word brothers shifted the room's air. Varys's eyes flicked to Robert. Bywater's one eye narrowed. Barristan's expression did not change, but his silence deepened. Robert's breath came hard. "Renly," he whispered, and the name tasted like betrayal. Varys stepped forward slightly. "Prince Renly left the city before dawn," he said softly. "His destination is uncertain, but—" He hesitated, the softness returning like a curtain. "A little bird says roses are being cut in Highgarden." Robert's face darkened. "The Tyrells," he growled. Eddard felt the cold certainty. If Renly had gone to Highgarden, then he was not fleeing. He was gathering. He was taking the city's fear and turning it into a claim. "And Stannis?" Eddard asked. Varys's gaze lowered. "Dragonstone rights and rights," he murmured. "Ships are being prepared. The sea does not lie as easily as men do." Robert's fist tightened. "He's coming," he snarled, "to steal my crown while I bleed." Eddard's voice was careful. "To claim his crown if you fall," he corrected. Robert's eyes blazed. "I will not fall," he hissed. Barristan's voice was low. "Then we must keep you alive," he said, and the bluntness of it made Robert flinch. Bywater leaned in over the map, tapping King's Landing's gates. "We can lock the city down," he said. "Curfew, closed gates, patrols." His eye flicked to Robert. "But it will look like fear." Robert's mouth twisted. "Let it," he growled. "I want them to fear." Eddard heard the danger again, but he also heard the truth. Fear might keep knives at bay for a night, but it would not hold the realm. "We need a plan," Eddard said. "Not a tantrum." Robert's gaze snapped to him, and for a heartbeat Eddard thought the king might strike him for daring. Then Robert looked away, jaw working, and the fury turned inward again like a wound being pressed. "Get her," Robert said finally, voice rough. "Bring Cersei here. I want her under my eyes while we decide whether this city lives or dies." Varys's eyes softened, almost pitying. Bywater bowed once and left, boots hard. Barristan remained, watching Robert as if watching a man standing on a cliff in fog. Eddard stared down at the map and felt the war pressing closer. Outside the city, inside the keep, inside the king. And he understood, with a cold clarity, that they were no longer trying to win. They were trying not to collapse first. Eddard did not want to do it. Dragging a bastard into a king's private chamber felt like dragging a child onto a battlefield and calling it proof. But the city was already a battlefield, and truth had become a weapon whether Eddard liked it or not. Gendry stood by the chamber's hearth with his hammer held in both hands, knuckles white. The boy's shoulders were squared, but his eyes flicked constantly: door, guards, the king's shadow. He looked like someone who had been hunted long enough to believe the hunt never ended. Robert Baratheon stared at him as if staring at a ghost. Not at the boy's face at first, though the set of jaw and the stubborn brow might have tugged at memory, but at the hair. Black as coal, thick, unashamed. Baratheon hair, the kind the books called the Seed. The kind Robert had worn like a banner in his youth. Robert's hands trembled, and the tremble was not pain. It was recognition. "Who is he?" Robert rasped. "A smith's apprentice," Eddard said carefully. "A boy Varys kept hidden." Robert's eyes stayed on the hair. "His name?" Robert demanded. Gendry's jaw clenched. "Gendry," he said, voice rough. Robert swallowed. The sound was loud in the chamber's tight air. He stepped closer, slowly, as if afraid the boy would vanish if he moved too fast. "How old?" Robert asked. "Old enough," Gendry said, and there was anger in it. Anger at being dragged into the king's life like a tool. Eddard watched Robert's face shift. Rage cracking, grief seeping through, horror following it like a shadow. He saw Robert remembering women in taverns, laughter, the careless joy of conquest before crowns made everything heavy. Robert reached out as if to touch the boy's hair, then stopped, hand hovering. his fingers curled into a fist instead. "You look like," Robert began, and the words failed. "Like your bloody problem?" Gendry snapped, the fear turning into defiance because defiance was easier. "I didn't ask for this." Robert's eyes flashed. Anger at the tone, then something softer, as if the king suddenly remembered what it felt like to be young and angry and powerless. Eddard stepped in quietly. "He didn't," Eddard said, "and neither did your children, whatever their blood." Robert's face contorted at that. "My children," he whispered, and the whisper sounded like pain. Gendry's eyes narrowed. "Children?" he muttered. "You've got." Eddard cut him off with a look. Gendry swallowed the rest. Robert stared at the boy again, then at his own warhammer leaning against a chair, blood-stained bandage visible at his shoulder. He looked, for a heartbeat, like he had aged 10 years in a breath. "This," Robert said hoarsely, "is what Baratheon blood looks like." Eddard said nothing. He let the truth sit, heavy and undeniable. Robert's jaw worked. "And Joffrey," he whispered, voice tightening. "And Myrcella, and Tommen." He swallowed hard, eyes shining with something he refused to call tears. "They look like Lannisters," Eddard finished. "It softly." Robert's roar shattered the chamber's quiet. He slammed his fist into the hearthstone hard enough that ash jumped. "Liars," he bellowed, and the rage in the word was grief wearing armor. Gendry flinched, hammer lifting instinctively. Robert's eyes flicked to it, and for a heartbeat Eddard feared Robert might laugh at the boy's fear. Instead, Robert's face twisted again, because the boy's fear was justified. Robert had become the kind of man children feared. Robert turned his head toward Eddard, voice shaking. "This is proof," he rasped. "It is a piece," Eddard said carefully. "Not enough alone." Robert's eyes burned. "It's enough for me," he snarled. Eddard held his gaze. "The realm is not you," he said. "The realm will demand witnesses, documents, words they can repeat in halls." He lowered his voice. "And the realm will demand blood if you say it too loudly." Robert's breath came hard. He looked back at Gendry, and in his gaze there was something like shame. "Get him out," Robert said abruptly, voice rough. "Hide him. If Tywin gets him, if Cersei gets him." "He's already in danger," Eddard said. "That is why he cannot stay." Robert's jaw clenched. "Send him north," he growled. "To your wolves. Somewhere my city can't reach." Eddard nodded once, because it was what he had already decided. Gendry's eyes widened. "North?" he said, voice cracking. "I don't." "You'll live," Eddard said quietly, "if you do as you're told." Gendry stared at Robert, at the king who might be his father, and did not feel like it. "Do you even care?" he demanded, the anger breaking through. Robert's face contorted. "I care," he rasped. "Gods help me, I care too late." He turned away sharply, as if his own words embarrassed him. "Go," he barked, "before I change my mind and drag you into court like a banner." Eddard placed a hand lightly on Gendry's shoulder. Steady, brief. "Come," he said. As they left the chamber, Eddard glanced back once. Robert stood alone by the hearth, staring at the embers as if trying to see his children's faces in the coals, and the warhammer beside him looked less like a weapon now and more like a weight he could not set down. Night made the docks honest. In daylight, King's Landing's harbor was noise and commerce and the illusion of order. Fishmongers shouting, sailors laughing, coin changing hands. At night, it was shadows and whispered deals, and the water's dark surface reflected torchlight like 1,000 watching eyes. Eddard moved through the docks with his hood up, cloak plain, stark men close. Jory Castle walked at his side, hand near his sword, eyes scanning every corner. Gendry stayed between them, hammer tucked under his arm like a child clutching a toy, except this toy could crack skulls if he had to. A merchant cog from White Harbor sat at anchor not far from the pier, its hull dark, its mast rising like a finger pointing north. The captain, a thick-bearded Northman with wary eyes, waited beside a stack of barrels, pretending to inspect rope while his gaze tracked every torch. Eddard stepped close and spoke low. "Captain," he said. The man's eyes flicked to Gendry's black hair and widened slightly. Northerners were not fools. They understood what black hair meant when gold lions were roaring. Eddard held out a sealed letter and a heavy purse. "This buys silence," he said. "And speed." The captain swallowed, weighing the purse in his hand, feeling coins settle. "Where?" he asked. "White Harbor," Eddard said. "To Lord Wyman Manderley. No stops. No boasting." "If you are hailed by any ship, you claim you carry salted fish and nothing else." The captain's mouth tightened. "And the boy is a deckhand," Eddard said, "who never speaks." Gendry bristled. "I'm not." Jory's hand tightened gently on his arm. "Not now," he murmured. Torchlight swept across the pier, gold cloaks moving in a searching line, spears angled, faces hard. Someone shouted a question. Someone else answered with a curse. The watch was hunting, and Eddard could feel the city's net tightening. The captain's eyes flicked toward the gold cloaks. "They're close," he whispered. "Then move," Eddard said, voice like iron. The captain signaled with 2 fingers, and men in the cog's shadow shifted. Sailors moving like ghosts, hauling a gangplank closer. Gendry hesitated, eyes wide, the harbor water black and endless. Eddard leaned in, voice low. "You wanted to live," he said. "This is living." Gendry's jaw clenched. "And if I don't want your life?" he whispered. Eddard's eyes were cold, but not unkind. "Then you die in someone else's," he said. "That's the city's bargain." Gendry swallowed, then stepped forward onto the gangplank, boots thudding softly. He moved quickly after that, disappearing into the ship's shadow like a boy swallowed by the sea. Jory followed half a step, then stopped at Eddard's look. This far only, no further. The less the keep knew, the safer the boy stayed. A gold cloak's torchlight swung closer. Voices sharpened. "Oi! You there!" a guard called. The captain squared his shoulders and turned, putting himself between torchlight and the gangplank. "Evening," he called. Ed back, voice thick with northern bluntness. "We're loading. Move along." The gold cloak stepped closer, suspicious. "Who are you?" "A man who doesn't like being interrupted," the captain replied, "and who doesn't take kindly to southern hands on his rope." The guard's eyes narrowed, spear shifting. "We're searching for..." Eddard stepped forward from shadow, voice calm. "Searching wastes time," he said. "The city is on the edge. If you want to keep it, you'll keep your men from harassing merchants." The gold cloak's gaze flicked to Eddard's face, uncertain, then to Jory's stance, then to the faint outline of stark steel beneath cloaks. He weighed risk and decided this pier was not worth dying on. He spat onto the boards. "Fine," he muttered, "but if we find you hiding..." "You won't," Eddard said, and the certainty in his voice was colder than the night wind. The gold cloak moved on, torchlight sweeping away. Eddard waited until the searching line had passed, then nodded once to the captain. "Sail," he said. The captain did not nod back. He simply moved, because men who survived in storm did not waste motion on courtesy. The gangplank lifted. Ropes shifted. The cog's silhouette began to ease away from the pier like a secret slipping out of a hand. Gendry appeared once at the rail, looking back, eyes bright with fear and fury, as if he wanted to memorize the city that had made him prey. He said nothing. Then the ship turned, and the black hair vanished into darkness. Eddard stood on the pier and felt the cold relief of it, and the cold fear, because sending the boy away did not end the danger. It only moved it north, toward Winterfell, toward the realm's most honest stone. Jory touched his elbow. "We should go," he murmured. Eddard nodded. "Yes," he said. They vanished back into the city's shadows, leaving the river to carry one more secret away from knives. Cersei did not mourn the failed bolt at the Sept. She mourned only wasted opportunity. In the Red Keep's holding room, candlelight made the chains on her wrists shine like dull jewelry. She sat at the small table with her back straight, and if her wrists ached, she did not show it. Pain was private. Power was public. Joffrey sat close, face tight with excitement that did not belong in a child. He had been dragged back to the keep after the riot, his hood torn off, his mouth full of protests. Now he leaned in like a conspirator at a feast. He would have died, Joffrey whispered, eyes bright, if the wolf hadn't. Cersei's fingers tapped the table once. Then the wolf is still the obstacle, she murmured. Sandor Clegane stood near the door, arms folded, face hard. He looked like a man watching a snake teach a smaller snake how to bite. Myrcella and Tommen sat on a bench under guard, bundled in cloaks, pale and silent. Tommen's eyes were red from crying. Myrcella's hands were clasped so tight her knuckles shone. Cersei reached into the folds of her cloak and produced her lion ring. She held it out to Joffrey like a crown. "Press," she said. Joffrey's breath quickened. He took the ring with reverence. Cersei slid a small lump of wax across the table, soft from being warmed near the candle, and guided Joffrey's fingers. "Hard," she whispered, "so they see it clearly." Joffrey pressed the ring into wax, leaving the lion's face stamped deep. He lifted it, smiling. Myrcella watched with widening eyes. "Mother," she whispered, "what are you doing?" Cersei did not look at her. "Ensuring we are not devoured," she said calmly. Sandor's burned mouth twisted. "That boy's going to get you all killed," he rumbled. Joffrey's head snapped. "Shut up," he hissed. Sandor's eyes were flat. "I'll shut up when you stop talking like a king before you've earned it," he said. Joffrey rose half an inch, furious. "I am the prince," he snapped. Cersei's voice cut through, soft and sharp. "Sit," she said. Joffrey sat. He always sat when she used that tone. Cersei took the wax seal impression and held it up, studying it. "This," she murmured, "is how men justify their crimes." She slid it back to Joffrey. "A seal, an order, a command that makes cowards brave because they believe they will not be punished." Joffrey's eyes glittered. "Who do we command?" he whispered. Cersei's smile was faint. "Men who like coin," she said. "Men who like survival." Her gaze flicked to Sandor. "Men who like pretending they are honorable while they do filthy work." Sandor's jaw tightened. "Don't look at me," he growled. "I'm not your knight." Cersei's eyes glittered. "You are a sword," she said softly, "and swords are used." Myrcella's voice trembled. "Stop," she whispered. "Please, father is." Cersei's head turned slowly, and her gaze pinned her daughter. "Your father," she said, "is a wounded beast. He swings at anything near him. If we do not move, he will swing at UN. Et. Myrcella flinched. Tommen began to cry again, quiet and helpless. Joffrey's mouth tightened. "He is not my father," he hissed, and the words came too easily now, practiced like a line in a play. Cersei's fingers curled slightly, not in shock, but in satisfaction. The seed she had planted had taken root. Sandor's voice was low, disgusted. "Gods," he muttered, "you're poisoning him with words." Cersei smiled faintly. "Words are cheaper than poison," she said. Joffrey leaned closer, voice hungry. "Renly ran," he whispered. "Littlefinger ran. They're afraid of him." "They're not afraid," Cersei corrected gently. "They're positioning." She tapped the wax seal. "And so are we." Joffrey's eyes narrowed. "He will hold another trial," he said, remembering Robert's vow. Cersei's smile sharpened. "He will try," she murmured. "But the city has already shown him the truth. He cannot command it with a hammer." Her gaze slid to Myrcella and Tommen briefly, a flicker of something fierce and possessive. "If he cannot command the city, then he cannot command the throne." Joffrey's breath quickened. "So we take it," he whispered. Cersei leaned close, chains clinking softly. "Not with your hands," she said. "With their hands. With men who will swear they are saving the realm." She paused, then added softly, "And when it is done, the city will call you stability, the same way it calls plague weather. Sandor's eyes narrowed. "And if the king catches you?" he asked. Cersei's gaze did not blink. "Then the king will not live long enough to catch anyone," she replied. Myrcella let out a small, broken sound. "Mother," she whispered. Cersei's expression softened for a heartbeat. Only a heartbeat, then hardened again into purpose. "Hush," she said. "You will survive because you are mine." Outside the room, the keep's corridors hummed with movement. Bywater's purge, Barristan's patrols, Robert's anger. The castle was tightening like a fist. Inside, Cersei Lannister pressed a lion into wax and taught her son that crowns were not inherited. They were taken. Renly Baratheon did not flee like a frightened man. He fled like a man who had finally been given permission to become what he had always wanted to be. Highgarden welcomed him with warmth. Actual warmth, not the false warmth of courtly smiles. The hall smelled of flowers and polished wood, and the air was softer than King's Landing's stink. Servants moved quietly, not like hunted mice. Guards stood at ease, not gripping spears as if expecting mobs. Mace Tyrell rose from his seat with a broad smile that looked like generosity and felt like calculation. "My lord," he boomed, arms spread as if welcoming a son. Renly returned the smile with practiced ease. "Lord Mace," he said warmly, "I come as a man who loves the realm." Mace laughed. "A rare breed," he said, and clasped Renly's forearm. Marjorie Tyrell watched from beside her father, face composed, eyes bright. She wore green and gold as if she had been born under a rose. Her smile was small, polite, and sharp beneath its softness. Behind Renly, Loras Tyrell stood close, posture taut with devotion that was too visible to be denied. A messenger knelt before them, dusty, breathless. "My lord," he gasped to Mace. "News from King's Landing." Mace's smile faltered. "Spit it out," he demanded. The messenger swallowed. "The city riots," he said. "The king brought the queen in chains. There was a trial, then violence. A crossbow bolt at the Sept. Gold cloaks fought stark men in the Red Keep. Captain Slint broken." He glanced at Renly, and the king called it treason. Renly's smile did not move. Only his eyes tightened a fraction. "He's bleeding," he said softly. The messenger nodded quickly. "Aye, my lord. They say he reopened his wound. They say he—" The man hesitated, then rushed on. "They say he swore he would burn the city down before he let it cage him." Marjorie's eyes glittered. "So the story writes itself," she murmured. Mace turned to her, uncertain. "What story?" Marjorie's voice was calm. "A king who has lost control," she said. "A king who brings blood to the gods. A king who cannot keep peace." Her gaze slid to Renly. "A king who must be replaced, for the realm's safety." Renly lifted his cup slowly, as if tasting the words. "Stannis will claim that," he said. Mace's brows knit. "Stannis is stone," he muttered. "Men don't love stone." Renly's smile softened. "But they may fear it," he said. Loras's jaw tightened. "Then we make them love you," he said fiercely. Renly's gaze flicked to him, affection, and steel beneath, then back to Mace. "The Reach feeds the realm," Renly said. "The Reach can keep King's Landing from starving. The Reach can keep lords from panicking. The Reach can—" He paused, letting the weight settle. "The Reach can decide who the realm accepts." Mace's chest swelled, pleased. "Aye," he said. "Aye, we can." Marjorie stepped closer, voice low. "If the king falls," she said, "the realm will look for a hand to steady it." Her smile sharpened. "Offer them one." Renly's smile was bright, but his eyes were colder now. "Robert is my brother," he said softly, as if the words mattered. Marjorie's gaze did not blink. "And the realm is everything," she replied. Mace leaned forward, eager. "What do you propose?" he asked. Renly's smile widened. "I propose we prepare," he said. "Quietly, we gather banners. We gather grain. We gather the men who prefer a smiling king to a bleeding one. He looked at the rose banners, at the hall's warm light, and for a heartbeat he looked like a man finally breathing. "And when the time comes?" Mace asked. Renly's voice was gentle. "When the time comes," he said, "we save the realm." Loras's eyes burned with devotion. Marjorie's smile remained calm. Outside Highgarden's walls, the Reach's fields stretched green and abundant, untouched by war for now. But war was coming, drawn by a city's fear and a king's fury. Renly Baratheon lifted his cup toward the rose banners and smiled, as if he could already see a crown reflected there. Littlefinger did not run to hide. He ran to sell. He found Highgarden's edges at night, where hedges were tall and paths were quiet, and the roses smelled too sweet for honest men. He moved through shadow like he belonged there, because men like Peter Baelish belonged anywhere coin could be counted. Tyrion Lannister found him because Tyrion had learned, young, that snakes left trails, subtle but real. A servant's whisper, a guard's glance, a missing pouch in the wrong place. Tyrion followed the trail the way a man followed the smell of smoke. They met beneath a garden walkway where lantern light was dim and rose shadows lay thick. Peter smiled as if greeting an old friend. "My lord of coin," Tyrion said, voice dry. "You've been difficult to find." Peter's smile widened slightly. "That is how I remain alive," he replied. Tyrion's eyes were sharp. "The Red Keep bled last night," he said. "And you were gone." Peter put a hand to his chest in mock offense. "You wound me," he murmured. "I'm a peaceful man." Tyrion laughed quietly. "Peaceful men don't buy city watches," he said. Peter's eyes gleamed. "I didn't buy them," he said. "I rented their attention. There's a difference." Tyrion stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Who did you rent them for?" he asked. Peter's smile did not falter. "For the realm," he said lightly. Tyrion's expression did not change, but something hard flickered behind it. "That word again," he murmured. "It's becoming fashionable." Peter leaned on the stone railing, casual. "Fashion is everything," he said. "Ask the Tyrells." Tyrion's gaze flicked over the roses, then back. "Renly," he said. Peter's smile sharpened. "Renly is charming," he replied. "Charm is a kind of weapon too, you know?" Tyrion's voice was low. "And my father?" he asked. "What is he to you tonight? A client? A threat? A ladder rung?" Peter's eyes glittered. "Your father is gravity," he said. "You can ignore it for a while, but eventually it pulls you down." Tyrion's mouth twisted. "Then why aren't you under his boot already?" he asked. Peter shrugged slightly. "Because boots need something to step on," he said. "And I am very small." Tyrion reached into his cloak and produced a rolled map, placing it on the stone between them. "You helped make the city riot," he said. "You helped push a story that Robert is unwell." He tapped the map near King's Landing. "That story is useful to my father." Peter's smile widened. "Then your father should thank me," he said. Tyrion's eyes narrowed. "My father doesn't thank," he said. "He pays, or he kills." Peter's gaze was bright. "Then perhaps he'll do both," he murmured. Tyrion leaned in, voice sharp. "If Robert dies," he said, "Stannis claims the throne. Renly raises banners. The realm fractures." He held Peter's gaze. "Chaos." Peter's smile turned almost fond. "Yes," he said softly. "Lovely, isn't it?" Tyrion felt the chill. "What do you want?" he demanded. Peter glanced at the roses, then back. "I want to be indispensable," he said simply, "to whichever king survives." Tyrion's laugh was bitter. "That's ambitious," he said. Peter's eyes gleamed. "Ambition is the only honest thing in King's Landing," he replied. Tyrion slid a small purse of coin onto the stone. Clinked softly. "Then be honest with me," he said. "Who fired the bolts at the Sept? Who put the poison under the King's cup? Who benefits most from Robert bleeding in public?" Peter did not touch the coin. He looked at it, amused, as if it were a child's offering. "So many hands," he murmured. "So many interests." He leaned closer, voice dropping. But if you want a name, look at the people who can call it mercy. Tyrion's eyes narrowed. The Faith, he whispered. Peter's smile sharpened. The Faith is a mob with prayers, he murmured. Very useful. He paused, then added softer. And look at the people who can call it stability. Tyrion's jaw clenched. Renly, he said again. Peter's smile did not answer. It didn't have to. Tyrion took a slow breath. My father will come, he said. Peter's gaze was bright. Your father is already here, he murmured. Not in body, but in influence, in coin, in fear. Tyrion's voice was low. If you betray him, he warned. Peter's smile turned sweet. I never betray, he said. I simply change my investments. Tyrion stared at him for a long moment, then took the purse back without leaving it. Keep your hands clean, he said softly. If you can. Peter's eyes gleamed. Hands are never clean, he replied. Not where crowns are concerned. Tyrion turned away, moving back into Highgarden's shadows, and Peter Baelish remained beneath the roses, smiling to himself, already calculating the next rung. In King's Landing, men fought with swords. In gardens, they fought with whispers. Bywater's purge did not smell like justice. It smelled like fear. Flea Bottom burned with restless energy after the Sept riot, as if the city's filth had risen to the surface and refused to sink again. Torches moved through alleys like angry fireflies, gold cloaks shouting, boots thudding, staves cracking against doors. Small folk screamed. Septons shouted prayers as if prayer could stop steel. Jacelyn Bywater walked at the head of it with his one eye cold and clear. He did not shout like Janos Slint. He did not grin. He pointed, and men were dragged into torchlight. That one, Bywater said. He threw the bolt. A man sputtered in protest, hands raised. I didn't. Bywater's gold cloak slammed him against a wall. Tell it to the gallows, the man snarled. Eddard watched from a side street, cloak pulled tight, face grim. He had not wanted to be here. He had wanted to be in the keep, shaping law, keeping Robert from burning his own throne down. But law was dying in the streets, and if it died completely, nothing would stop the city from crowning whoever promised the least blood, while spilling the most. A crowd surged near a crooked sept, faces twisted with hunger and fear. The gods will judge, someone screamed. The gods can't stop staves, someone else shouted back. A stone flew, struck a gold cloak's helm. The man staggered, then swung his stave into the crowd. Someone screamed. Blood splattered on cobble. Bywater's voice cut through, hard. Hold the line, he snapped. No looting. No killing unless you must. A gold cloak laughed bitterly. They're trying to kill us, he spat. Bywater's one eye burned. Then you kill the right ones, he replied. Not whoever is closest. Eddard felt the irony of it. Bywater preaching discipline in Flea Bottom, while the king who needed discipline most was bleeding in a castle above. But discipline was contagious if it started somewhere. A group of Septons pushed forward, faces flushed, eyes wild. One lifted a 7-pointed star on a wooden pole like a weapon. The king is cursed, he shouted. The queen is a martyr. The gods. Bywater's gold cloaks grabbed him, yanking the pole away. The Septon screamed, spitting. Heretics, he shrieked. Bywater stepped close, face hard. You want to call for blood? He asked quietly. Call for it in your own bed, not in my streets. The Septon spat in his face. Bywater didn't flinch. He wiped the spit away with the back of his gauntlet and nodded once. 2 gold cloaks dragged the Septon into the torchlight like a sack of meat. The crowd roared, surging. Eddard's hand drifted toward his sword, not because he wanted to draw, but because he felt the city's mood turning. One push away from a slaughter. A little girl cried near a doorway, clutching a dead rat by the tail as if it were treasure. Her mother pulled her back, eyes wide, and Eddard saw the same look he had seen in the Riverlands. Small folk realizing kings were not shields. Kings were storms. Avoy. Sea rose above the chaos, familiar, sharp. "Stannis!" someone shouted. "Stannis will save us." Another voice answered, "Renly!" and the name was cheered like a song. A third voice screamed, "Tywin!" as if gold could buy peace. Eddard's blood chilled. The city was already choosing kings with its mouth. Bywater heard it too. His one eye flicked toward Eddard's shadowed place, as if checking whether the wolf understood what those shouts meant. Eddard did. He stepped out from the side street and moved closer to Bywater, keeping his voice low so it wouldn't become a weapon. "This," he said, gesturing at the riot, "is what they want." Bywater's jaw tightened. "They want chaos," he said. Eddard's eyes narrowed. "They want a story," he corrected. "A king who can't control his city. A king who bleeds in public. A king who must be replaced." Bywater's one eye burned. "Then we give them order," he said. Eddard stared at the crowd, at the torches, at the shouting septons. "Order with staves," he murmured. "And truth with what? A trial the city already ruined?" Bywater's mouth tightened. "Truth doesn't matter to mobs," he said. "Only who looks strong." Eddard felt the weight of that. He looked up toward the hill where the red keep loomed, pale against the night sky, and wondered whether Robert still looked strong, or whether the city had already begun to see him as a wounded beast they could finally put down. Bywater barked another order and gold cloaks surged. The crowd screamed. More stones flew. More blood fell. Eddard turned away before he could see too much of it, because he knew this was only the beginning. The city was learning a new habit, chanting names. Once a city learned that habit, it was hard to make it forget. Cersei Lannister escaped the way she lived, with other people's hands. It happened while the city screamed. Bywater's gold cloaks were busy cracking skulls in Flea Bottom. Stark guards were stretched thin. Barristan Selmy was moving between fires, trying to keep the keep from catching flame. And Robert Baratheon, wounded, furious, exhausted, was exactly where his enemies wanted him, in a castle that could not decide whether it was fortress or prison. A hooded gold cloak appeared at Cersei's cell door just before midnight. The guard outside stiffened, suspicious. The hooded man held up a wax seal impression, lion-marked, deep, legitimate-looking in torchlight. "Bywater's order," the hooded man said, voice low. "Transfer." Quiet. "The Sept's demanding her." The Stark guard hesitated. The seal looked right. The phrasing sounded right. And fear made men accept the first thing that resembled authority. The door opened. Cersei stood inside in her chains, hair braided, face calm. She looked at the hooded man's seal and smiled faintly, as if pleased by how easily the world accepted lies when they were stamped correctly. The hooded man threw a cloak over her shoulders. "Head down," he murmured. Cersei lowered her head just enough to hide her smile. They moved through corridors that smelled of torch smoke and panic. Twice they passed guards hurrying the other direction, and no one stopped them, because no one wanted to be the man who questioned an order in a castle on the edge. At a postern door, a key turned. Cold night air slipped in, damp with the Blackwater stink. Cersei stepped through the door. Outside, in the dark yard between walls, another shadow waited, small, sharp. Joffrey Baratheon, hood up, eyes bright as coals. He did not run to her. He simply watched, as if savoring the moment. "Mother," he whispered. Cersei's voice was soft. "My lion," she murmured. A hand caught her arm, not rough, not cruel, guiding, leading, toward the city's shadow. Inside the Red Keep, Eddard Stark felt it before he was told. The keep had a way of shifting when something vital moved, like a hearth suddenly losing heat. A guard burst into the war room, breathless. "My lord," he gasped. "The Queen's cell." Eddard was already moving, ice in hand, boots thudding down corridors. Robert followed behind, hammer dragging slightly, face pale with rage so cold it looked like frost. They reached the cell. The door was open. The room was empty. Chains lay on the floor like shed skin, the iron broken at a weak link, filed, perhaps, over time. A smear of wax glinted on the table where a seal impression had been pressed. A faint scent of perfume lingered, mocking. Eddard's blood went cold. "She's gone," he said. Robert's voice was a raw whisper. "Gone," he echoed. Then the whisper turned into a roar that shook stone. "Gone." Barristan arrived a heartbeat later, face grim. Bywater followed, one eye blazing, cloak spattered with street grime. "How?"
Bywater demande.
D voice sharp. Eddard held up the wax smear, his jaw tight. "A seal," he said. "An order." Bywater's face went darker. "I didn't give it," he said. Barristan's eyes narrowed. "Then someone forged it," he said. Robert's breath came ragged. He stared at the empty room as if he could will Cersei back into chains. "She was my proof," he whispered, and the sound of it was almost childlike, lost. Eddard's voice was grim. "She was also your bait," he said. Robert's head snapped toward him, eyes blazing. "I held her," he snarled. "I held her and still she slipped. What good is a crown if it can't hold a woman?" Eddard held his gaze. "A crown doesn't hold," he said. "Men do." Bywater's one eye burned. "I will lock every gate," he said. "I will search every barracks. I will." Barristan shook his head slightly. "If she has a head start," he said, "she will already be under someone's protection." Robert's jaw clenched. "Tywin," he growled. Eddard's stomach tightened. "Or the Faith," he said. "Or Renly's men. Or—" He stopped because the worst name tasted like poison. Robert spoke it anyway, voice low and shaking. "Joffrey." Silence snapped tight. Bywater's I flicked away, as if unwilling to look at that truth. Barristan's face tightened with something like sorrow. Robert's hands trembled on the hammer haft. He looked suddenly terribly tired, not of fighting, but of being outplayed. "They overrule me," he whispered. "They overrule me in my city. They overrule me in my keep. They take my wife from chains and call it order." Eddard stepped closer, voice low. "Then you answer," he said, "but not with fire, not with a vow that proves their whisper." He held eyes steady, not threatening but grounding. "You answer with authority that looks like law." Robert's laugh was bitter. "Law," he rasped. "Law is dead on the Sept steps." Eddard's eyes hardened. "Then we move the law," he said, "out of the city, out of the mob's mouth, into a place where steel matters again." Bywater's one eye narrowed. "Where?" he asked. Eddard's voice was quiet, decisive. "The king cannot stay here," he said. "Not with the city chanting names, not with Cersei loose, not with Renly raising roses and Stannis writing judgments." He looked at Robert. "We leave. We call banners. We choose ground." Robert stared at the empty room, then at the broken chain on the floor. For a heartbeat, Eddard saw the man Robert had been before the crown. Warrior, decisive, certain that moving forward was the only way to live. Robert's jaw clenched. "Find her," he growled to Bywater. "Find Baelish. Find Renly. Find every man who smiled at me and sharpened a knife." Bywater bowed once, grim. "I," he said. Robert turned back to Eddard, eyes burning again. "And you," he rasped, "you will right the realm. You will tell them what happened. You will tell them the queen fled justice. You will tell them the city tried to kill its king." Eddard nodded once. "I will," he said. Robert's voice Diaro, head rough with vow. "And then I will remind them what happens when you try to overrule a stag." Outside the cell, somewhere deep in King's Landing, a bell tolled distant, hollow, as if the gods themselves were marking an ending. Because with Cersei Lannister free, the last thin thread holding the city to Robert Baratheon's version of truth had snapped. Now the realm would choose whose story it believed. And stories in Westeros killed more kings than swords ever did. The Red Keep did not feel like a castle after Cersei fled. It felt like a throat that had been cut and was still trying to speak. They brought the broken chain to Robert like a confession. A weak link filed thin over time, iron scraped down by patience and hate. It lay on the war room table beside the map, beside the scattered seals, beside the thin wax smear that had pretended to be lawful authority. The pieces looked small. Their consequences filled the city. Robert stared at it until his eyes reddened. "In my keep," he whispered. The words were not outrage anymore. They were disbelief, like a man looking at his own hands and finding blood there. Then disbelief curdled. He slammed the shackle down hard enough to rattle inkpots. "In my keep," he roared, voice cracking the room. Eddard Stark kept his face steady and his hands still. The instinct to soothe Robert had died somewhere on Baelor's steps, trampled under a mob's hunger. Now there was only control or the illusion of it. Barristan Selmy stood near the door, white cloak hanging straight, his eyes older than the iron on the table. Jacelyn Bywater leaned by the map with his one eye hard as a nail, listening to the king rage as if rage were whether to be endured. "Joffrey," Robert's voice dropped, low and shaking. "Tell me where he is." Bywater's jaw tightened. "Missing," he said, "since the riot. My men found his rooms empty, 2 guards dead, throats cut clean. Not watch work." Eddard felt the cold settle deeper. "Lannister," he said, and the word tasted like poison. Robert's mouth twisted. "My son runs with my wife," he snarled. "My son runs with the liar who birthed him." He spat, then swallowed hard as if the spit might choke him. "And the city will call it mercy." Varys wasn't in the room. That absence felt deliberate, either caution or calculation. Eddard did not ask where he was. In King's Landing, asking where men were only reminded you how easily they vanished. Robert planted both hands on the table, leaning over the map like a general trying to pin an enemy down with his palms. The bandage at his shoulder darkened at the edge. Blood seeped. The king ignored it. "Lock the gates," Robert ordered. Bywater's one eye flicked toward him. "We can," he said, "but the city will riot harder." "Let it," Robert growled. "Let them howl until their throats split." Eddard's voice cut in low and firm. "If you lock the gates, you trap the mob with you," he said. "And you trap yourself with the faith." Robert's head snapped. "The faith can choke," he snarled. Barristan's voice was quiet, careful. "The faith can also crown men," he said. "Not with steel, with belief." Robert's nostrils flared. He looked like a man who wanted to smash belief with his hammer just to prove it bled. Eddard leaned in slightly. "We cannot fight the city and the realm at once," he said. "We need distance." Robert's eyes burned. "Distance?" he echoed, contempt thick. "So I run. You relocate," Eddard swore. "Wrecked. You remove yourself from their knives and their mouths. You call the lords to you. You choose ground where steel matters again." Bywater's gaze sharpened. "Where?" he asked. Robert stared at the map's southern coast, then inland, jaw working. "Storm's End," he said finally, and the name came out like an oath. "My seat, my walls, my banners. Let the realm come to me if it wants to call me unfit." Barristan's jaw tightened. "And the city?" he asked. Robert's eyes flashed. "The city will learn what happens when it bites the hand that feeds it," he said. "Bywater holds it. Barristan holds my keep. Any man who takes coin hangs." Bywater's mouth tightened. He said, and Eddard heard what he did not say. Holding King's Landing would be like holding water in a fist. Eddard's gaze shifted, unwillingly, to the heap of letters. "And the children?" he asked softly. Robert went still. His breath scraped. "Myrcella," he whispered. "Tommen." Eddard saw it in his eyes. The same ugly war inside him as always. Love and disgust tangled together, the human father and the betrayed husband clawing for control. "Where are they?" Robert demanded. "In the keep," Barristan said. "Under guard. They haven't been touched." "Yet," Eddard said, and the word hung like a blade. Robert's mouth twisted. "Cersei will come for them," he growled. "And so will Tywin," Eddard said. "And so will Stannis, if he decides the realm requires it." He swallowed. And so will Renly if he needs symbols. Robert's hands tightened on the table edge. Then we move them, he snarled. Out. Now. Quietly, Eddard said. Or you paint targets on their backs. Robert's eyes narrowed. You protect them, he ordered Eddard, voice like iron. You protect them because... He choked on the thought he could not bear to name in front of men. Because they are children. Eddard held the king's gaze, feeling the weight settle. I will, he said. Robert's jaw clenched. He grabbed a raven scroll and tore wax from it with his teeth, not caring whose seal it bore. He scrawled on the parchment like a man carving a wound into paper. Write the realm, he growled. Tell them the queen fled justice. Tell them the city tried to murder its king. Tell them I call my banners to Storm's End. And tell them... His pen paused, trembling, then stabbed down again. Tell them Joffrey Baratheon is not my blood. The room tightened around the sentence. Bywater's one I flicked away, as if the words were too dangerous to look at. Barristan's face hardened with sorrow. Eddard felt the cold certainty. Once spoken, that truth could not be put back behind teeth. It would run through the realm like fire through dry grass. Robert slammed the parchment down. Now we see who kneels to truth, he whispered, and who kneels to coin. Bywater went to the Sept because in King's Landing, truth always fled to sanctuaries. The Great September of Baelor sat above the city like a white tooth, too clean for the rot beneath it. Bywater's men moved in disciplined lines through streets still stained from the riot. Broken fruit, cracked cobbles, a smear of blood where someone had fallen and not risen. The city watched them pass with eyes that were not grateful. The city's eyes were never grateful. They reached the Sept steps as prayers rolled down like smoke. Septons stood in clusters, murmuring, hands lifted, eyes bright with self-righteous fear. The crowd pressed at the base of the steps, bodies packed tight, faces red with shouting. Some screamed for the queen, some screamed for the king. Most screamed because screaming made them feel less powerless. Bywater halted his men in a straight line, spears down. He did not shout. He did not smile. He lifted his one eye to the Sept doors and waited as if patience were a weapon. The doors opened only a crack. The High Septon appeared in that thin gap, robes bright, face pale and offended by the presence of steel near his sanctified stone. Captain, the High Septon called, voice thin but sharp. This is holy ground. Bywater's voice was rough. Holy ground bleeds like any other, he replied. Open the doors. A murmur ran through the crowd. Approval, anger, hunger. The High Septon's cheeks flushed. You have no authority here, he said. The gods will. The king's will. Bywater cut in, blunt as a stave. Cersei Lannister is accused of treason and attempted regicide. She fled lawful custody. She is to be returned. The High Septon's eyes narrowed. The queen has sought sanctuary, he said, and the word came out like a shield held up in both hands. Sanctuary is sacred. Bywater's one eye flicked over the Septon's shoulder, catching a hint of movement deeper inside, shadows shifting, a glint of gold in candlelight, a whisper of perfume that did not belong in a holy house. He felt certainty settle. She was there. Sacred, Bywater echoed. He stepped closer, voice low enough that only the High Septon could hear. If you hide her, you make yourself a rebel. The High Septon's mouth tightened. You speak rebellion to the gods, he hissed. Bywater's one eye did not blink. I speak reality, he said. The city already tried to murder its king on your steps. Don't pretend the gods protected him. A stark sword did. A ripple of anger ran through the Septons behind the High Septon. Blasphemy, someone spat. The crowd surged, sensing the tension. Gold cloaks tightened their line. A stone flew, struck a spear shaft, bounced harmlessly. Another stone followed, and another, and Bywater could feel the city's hunger rising. Hungry for a fight, hungry for a martyr. The High Septon lifted his hands, voice rising. The queen is under the Seven's protection, he proclaimed. louder now so the crowd could hear. "No man may drag her from sanctuary. No man may." A chant rose from the crowd, building fast. "Queen, queen, queen." Bywater looked at the bodies pressed together below and saw what he needed. Not love for Cersei, but hatred for Robert's fury. Hatred made mobs loyal faster than any coin. He turned slightly, barking orders. "Hold," he snapped. "No one strikes first." A gold cloak beside him muttered, "They'll tear us apart, then die standing," Bywater replied, and the coldness of it made the man shut up. Inside the Sept, the High Septon's eyes gleamed with something like triumph. "You cannot touch her," he said softly, as if savoring Bywater's restraint. "Not without proving the king's madness." Bywater exhaled slowly. "Then I don't touch her," he said. The High Septon blinked, surprised. Bywater raised his voice so the crowd could hear. "The queen may hide behind prayers," he called. "But the city will know this. She fled lawful custody in the night. She fled the king's justice. If she is innocent, she can walk out and face trial like any other soul." The crowd's roar wavered, confused, then surged again, splitting into new chants. "Trial!" from one corner, "Sanctuary!" from another. Bywater stepped back, eyes hard. He knew he could not win this with spears. He could only stop it becoming worse. He signaled a withdrawal, slow, disciplined. Gold cloaks backed down the steps, spears still angled, shields tight. The crowd shouted after them, hurling insults, spitting. As Bywater retreated, his one eye flicked to the crack in the door again. For the briefest moment, he saw a pale hand with a lion ring and a curtain of golden hair. Cersei Lannister was smiling inside the god's house as if it were her own. Bywater turned away, jaw tight, and felt the city's story shifting under his boots. The queen sheltered by gods, the king snarling in his castle, the watch standing between them and being hated for it. He did not know how long he could hold that line. He only knew that if the line broke, the city would drown in blood and call it righteousness. Sanctuary changed Cersei the way sunlight changed gold. It made her look more valuable. Inside the Great September of Baelor, the air was thick with incense and candle smoke. Thousands of flames flickered, casting warm light across white marble and painted gods. It was meant to feel pure, felt hungry. Cersei stood beneath the seven-pointed star with her cloak arranged perfectly, hair braided as if she had never been chased through tunnels, as if she had never worn chains. And perhaps she had never worn them, not truly. Chains were for bodies. Cersei's weapons were not bound at the wrists. Joffrey stood at her side in a dark cloak, hood thrown back. His face was pale with excitement. His eyes shone. He looked like a boy listening to a song he loved and had finally learned he could sing it himself. The High Septon stepped to the doors and lifted his hands, and the crowd outside answered like a beast sensing meat. The noise rolled into the Sept, swelling under the domed ceiling until it felt like the gods themselves were shouting. "My children," the High Septon called, voice trembling with fervor. "The seven have granted sanctuary to a mother wronged." A cheer rose, ragged and fierce. Cersei's mouth curved faintly. She let the crowd see her face, let them see her poised suffering. The queen who had been dragged and humiliated. She did not tell them the truth. She gave them a truth they could afford. A woman wronged by a violent king. "The king," she said softly, and the word left her mouth like poison. "Robert Baratheon has lost his way." She turned slightly, eyes sweeping the Sept, latching on to lords and knights who had come to watch. "He killed a sworn Kingsguard in a wolf's hall. He dragged me in chains through the streets. He brought blood to the gods' steps." A murmur ran through those with finer clothes. Some nodded, some looked away. No one liked a king who made them fear for their own safety. Joffrey's voice rose, sharp with practiced indignation. "He is unwell," he declared, and the phrase sounded like something he had repeated in mirrors until it fit his mouth. "He is not himself." Cersei's eyes flicked to him, pleased. She laid a hand on his shoulder, fingers light as a blessing. My son speaks only truth, she murmured. The city has seen it. The High Septon nodded vigorously, seizing the moment. The gods have seen, he cried, and they will judge. The crowd roared again, hungry for judgment because judgment meant someone else would bleed. Cersei's gaze slid past the crowd and found a man waiting in shadow inside the sept. A Lannister guard dressed in plain cloth, eyes hard. He did not bow. He did not need to. When her eyes met his, he stepped closer, hand hidden beneath his cloak. A raven is already gone, he murmured. To whom? Cersei asked softly, not turning her head. To Lord Tywin Lannister, the man whispered. Cersei's smile sharpened. Good, she murmured. Tell him the city is ripe. The man hesitated. And the younger ones? Cersei's gaze flicked briefly to Joffrey, then back to the crowd. They remain in the keep, she said. For now. The man swallowed. If the king moves them, he will, Cersei said. He thinks like a hammer. He thinks if he moves far enough, the city's knives cannot reach him. Her eyes glittered. But knives travel, especially when guided by love and fear. Joffrey leaned closer, voice low, eager. Can we take them? He whispered. Cersei's fingers tightened on his shoulder, gentle and hard. Soon, she said. Not with force, with law, with sanctity. She tilted her head toward the High Septon. He will demand the children for safety. The city will cheer. And if Robert refuses, her smile deepened. Then Robert becomes the villain who endangers innocence. Joffrey's eyes gleamed, hungry. And then I become king, he whispered. Cersei looked at him, and in her gaze there was pride and something darker, relief. Then you become what you were born to be, she said softly. Outside, a chant began to rise, starting with a few voices and spreading like fire. Jof Fry, Jof Fry. The sound hit Cersei like a warm tide. She closed her eyes for a heartbeat and let herself feel the city's hunger align with her will. When she opened them, her gaze was bright. She stepped closer to the doors, letting the crowd see her fully, and raised her hands, empty, unchained. My people, she called softly. The crowd roared louder. Cersei let her voice tremble just enough to sound wounded. I do not seek war, she lied. I seek peace. I seek a king who can protect you, not terrify you. I seek justice, not the justice of a hammer, but the justice of the gods. The High Septon lifted his hands again, sealing her lie in sanctity. The seven will guide us, he cried. Cersei's smile was small and perfect. In the Red Keep, Robert Baratheon still believed he could command the realm with decrees and steel. In the Great September, Cersei Lannister let the realm believe the gods had chosen her side. And in King's Landing, belief was the sharpest blade of all. Robert made his proclamation in a hall that felt like it had lost faith in him. The throne room was not as full as it had been for the trial. Many lords had fled the city the moment blood spilled. Many had gone to the Sept to kneel with the crowd and pretend sanctity was safety. The ones who remained stood in uneasy clusters, eyes darting, hands near belts, bodies angled toward exits. Robert sat the Iron Throne with his back straight, as if posture could hide the fatigue gnawing at him. The bandage beneath his cloak showed. Blood had darkened the edge again. His warhammer rested at the steps, placed deliberately, symbol and threat, the king's true language made visible. Eddard stood below with a parchment in hand, and a clerk beside him with ink and trembling fingers. Barristan Selmy and Jacelyn Bywater flanked the dais like guardians of a crown that was slipping. Robert's voice filled the hall without needing to shout. Cersei of House Lannister fled lawful custody, he declared. She is accused of treason, incest, conspiracy, and attempted regicide. Any lord who shelters her shelters a traitor. Murmurs ran through the room. Some faces hardened. Some looked away, as if even hearing it made them guilty. Robert continued, jaw clenched. The City Watch acted in treason last night under bought orders. Captain Janos Slint is under arrest. The Watch will be purged. Any man found taking coin from lions, roses, or any other bastard banner will hang. Bywater's one eye burned, approving in silence. Robert's gaze swept the hall. "And now the truth that all you whisper like frightened women," he said, and the insult made several men flinch. "Joffrey Baratheon is not my blood." The hall froze. A knight's breath caught audibly. A lady's hand flew to her mouth. A lord's eyes widened, then narrowed, calculating. Eddard felt the world tilt. This was the sentence that made wars. Robert leaned forward, voice rough. "Myrcella Baratheon and Tommen Baratheon are also in question," he said, and his voice shook for a heartbeat before hardening again. "They are under my protection until the realm's judgment is made." Eddard heard the carefulness in that phrasing. "Not my sentence. Not my vengeance. The realm's judgment." Robert was trying clumsily, painfully, to sound like a king rather than a betrayed man with a hammer. Robert's gaze shifted to the clerk. "Write it," he snarled. "Write every word so no man can claim he misheard." The clerk's quill scratched frantically. Robert's voice rose, not in volume, but in force. "By law, my heir is Stannis Baratheon of Dragonstone," he declared, and the words tasted like poison in his mouth. "Until I take a new wife and produce trueborn heirs." A murmur surged, shock, discomfort, grudging acceptance. Naming Stannis was a concession to law that made Robert look both noble and desperate. Eddard watched faces change. Some lords looked relieved, law, stability. Some looked frightened, Stannis, hard and unforgiving. Some looked eager because any crack in a crown was opportunity. Robert lifted his hand and pointed south, toward walls no one could see through. "I remove my court from this city until it can be secured," he announced. "I will ride to Storm's End. There I will call my banners. There I will hold council. There I will decide the realm's peace." A lord stepped forward, voice shaky. "Your Grace." "Leaving the capital." Robert's head snapped. "The capital tried to murder me," he snarled. "The capital harbors a traitor queen under God's skirts. The capital chants for my bastard to wear my crown." His eyes blazed. "Let it chant. I will answer with steel." Eddard stepped forward, voice low but carrying. "The king summons all loyal lords to Storm's End," he said. "Bring your banners. Bring your council. The realm will not be decided by mobs." The phrase loyal lords hung heavy. Loyalty was no longer assumed. It had become a choice. Robert's gaze hardened. "Any lord who raises arms against me in the name of stability is a rebel," he said. "Any man who follows Renly Baratheon or any other smiling treason is a rebel." At Renly's name, whispers shifted again. Renly's absence had become its own accusation. Robert leaned forward, voice thick with rage and betrayal. "I will not be overruled," he said. "Not by lions, not by roses, not by septons, not by my own blood." His gaze flicked, briefly, to a shadowed corner where he imagined Joffrey's face. "Not by anyone." Eddard watched the room and felt the truth settle like winter. Proclamations did not win wars. They merely named them. When the clerk finished, Eddard took the parchment, blew gently to dry the ink, and sealed it with the king's stag. He did it carefully because this seal was now a weapon as sharp as any blade. Robert rose from the throne with a grimace, pain tugging at his shoulder. He looked down at his own hall, at the scattered lords, and something in his expression shifted. Less fury, more resolve. "Go," he said, "carry my words, and tell the realm this: the king still lives." Outside the Red Keep, bells began to toll in the city, answering the Sept's chants like a heartbeat answering a wound. King's Landing was choosing its story. Robert Baratheon had just thrown his into the fire and dared the realm not to burn with it. Eddard moved his daughters the way he moved secrets, quietly, with his heart clenched tight enough to crack ribs. Before dawn, the docks were a maze of shadow and salt. The Blackwater's stink rolled off the water in damp waves. Lanterns swung from ropes. Sailors muttered and spat. Somewhere farther down the pier, a drunk sang badly, and the sound made the night feel more dangerous than silence. Sansa Stark walked stiffly beneath a hooded cloak, her hands trembling inside her sleeves. Arya Stark walked like a wolf pup, eyes sharp, feet light, already looking for escape routes. Between them, Myrcella Baratheon held Tommen Baratheon's hand so tightly the boy's fingers were white. Myrcella's face was pale, but she did not cry. She had learned too quickly that crying did not stop storms. Tommen sniffled, eyes wide, and kept glancing back as if expecting his mother to appear out of shadow and make it all safe again. There was no mother coming, not this one. Jory Castle led them with Stark guards flanking, hands near knives, cloaks plain. Eddard stayed close enough to feel Sansa's fear like heat and Arya's readiness like a blade. "They're searching," Jory murmured, eyes scanning the pier. Gold cloak torchlight swept across the boards in slow arcs, moving closer, then farther. The Watch was hunting, but the Watch now had too many masters. A northern ship waited at anchor, smaller than a royal galley, leaner, built for speed rather than show. Its captain watched from the rail, face hard, hands ready. A man who understood that taking noble children aboard was not business. It was war. Eddard guided them toward the gangplank, voice low. "No speaking," he told them. "No names. You are pages. You are nothing." Sansa's lips trembled. "Father." Eddard's gaze softened for a heartbeat. "You will live," he said quietly. "That is all that matters." Arya's eyes flashed. "I can fight," she whispered. Eddard shook his head once. "Not here," he said. "Not against a city." They were nearly to the gangplank when movement shifted at the pier's edge. Men in plain cloth stepping too smoothly, too deliberately. Not sailors, not dockhands. Their hands were hidden beneath cloaks. Their eyes were hard. Lannister men. Eddard felt his pulse spike. "Down," he hissed, too late. A knife flashed. A Stark guard took it in the ribs with a grunt. Blood darkened his cloak instantly. Another man lunged toward Myrcella, hand grabbing for her wrist, and Sandor Clegane stepped out of shadow like a sentence. He had followed them without invitation, sword already in hand, his burned face half hidden beneath a hood. His eyes were flat, and his voice was a growl. "Wrong children," he spat, his blade cut, brutal and efficient. The man reaching for Myrcella lost his hand at the wrist. The severed hand hit the boards with a wet slap. The man screamed and fell, clutching the stump. Panic rippled down the pier. Sailors shouted. A lantern swung wildly, spilling light. Gold cloak too. Urches snapped toward the commotion. "Move!" Jory roared, and Stark men surged, forming a shield wall around the children. Arya's hand went to needle, but Eddard caught her wrist and shoved her forward. "Go!" he snapped. Sansa stumbled, nearly falling. Myrcella dragged Tommen, teeth clenched. The gangplank creaked under their boots as they ran. Sandor Clegane met the next attacker with a snarl, steel slamming into steel. He fought like a man who hated everyone present and was too tired to pretend otherwise. A knife scraped his armor. He backhanded the man with the flat of his blade hard enough to break teeth, then finished him with a thrust that pinned him to a piling. Gold cloaks began shouting from behind. "Stop! In the king's name!" Eddard almost laughed at the irony. Who's king? Which name did they chant today? A crossbow twanged somewhere in the dark. A bolt hissed past Eddard's shoulder and thudded into a crate, splintering wood. The pier erupted into chaos. Sailors ducking, guards shouting, torches bobbing. Eddard shoved Myrcella up the gangplank. "Keep moving," he ordered. Myrcella looked back once, eyes wide. "What about you?" Eddard's voice was hard. "You go." Tommen cried out, but Myrcella pulled him onward, and they vanished into the ship's shadow. Sansa paused at the rail, cheeks wet, eyes huge. "Father!" Eddard met her gaze, and something in his chest twisted. "North," he said. "Remember the North." Arya climbed aboard without hesitation, only turning once to glare at the pier as if she wanted to carve the city's name into her memory and punish it later. Jory and 2 Stark men followed onto the deck, forming a last guard line. Eddard stepped back from the gangplank, sword half drawn, watching Sandor. "Come," Eddard snapped to him. Sandor's burned mouth twisted. "I'm not your man," he growled. "No," Eddard said. "You're not. You're a blade that's tired of being used by boys." Sandor's eyes flicked toward the city, toward where Joffrey would be, toward where Cersei would be smiling behind gods. His jaw tightened with disgust that looked almost like shame. He spat onto the pier. "Fine," he growled, "but I'm not kneeling." "Don't," Eddard said. Sandor backed onto the gangplank, sword still in hand. The captain barked orders. Ropes were cut. Sailors shoved off. The ship drifted away from the pier like a secret slipping out of a fist. Gold cloak torches swept the water, searching. Shouts echoed. Another bolt hissed and splashed into the river. Eddard stood on the pier watching his daughters vanish into darkness, watching Myrcella and Tommen vanish too, and felt the cold relief of it, and the colder dread. Because sending them north was mercy, and mercy in Westeros was always paid for later. Robert left his capital the way a wounded man left a brawl, spitting blood and swearing he'd return. They sailed at night, because daylight belonged to the city's eyes. The royal galley slid down the Blackwater under a sky that held no stars, its oars beating in steady rhythm like a heart refusing to stop. The water was dark and choppy, slapping the hull as if protesting the king's retreat. On deck, Robert stood in a heavy cloak with the wind biting at his beard. The bandage beneath the cloth showed through in dark stains. He ignored the pain the way he ignored counsel when it did not suit him, but Eddard could see the stiffness in his posture, the way he favored one side. The king was not only hunted, he was breaking. King's Landing burned behind them with torchlight and riot glow. Fires in streets, lanterns swinging. The red keep's pale walls catching the city's dirty light. From this distance, the capital looked like a diseased jewel, beautiful only because darkness made it vague. Barristan Selmy stood a few paces back, white cloak pulled tight, eyes on the city as if he were memorizing it for a last time. Bywater had remained behind with the watch and a handful of loyal men, holding the keep because someone had to. Eddard had watched Robert give the order, and he had seen Bywater's one eye harden with acceptance of likely death. "You're abandoning it," Robert muttered, voice raw. Eddard's voice was low. "You're surviving it," he corrected. Robert's laugh was bitter. "Surviving," he echoed. "So I can come back and hang half the city from the walls." Eddard did not answer. Threats were Robert's comfort. If he took them away, the king might collapse into grief, and grief was more dangerous than rage because it made men careless. Robert stared at the red keep until it blurred in the mist. "She's in there," he whispered. Eddard's jaw tightened. "She's in the Sept," he said. "Likely, or in some hole Tywin paid for." Robert's fingers flexed on the rail. "And Joffrey," he growled. "My," he choked, swallowed the word. "Her boy." Eddard watched him carefully. "You named Stannis," he said. Robert's mouth twisted. "I named Law," he spat. "I named the thing everyone claims to love until it costs them." He looked back at the city. "If Stannis comes, he'll come like a hangman. He'll hang the boy and call it duty." "And if you stay," Eddard said, "you die in an alley and they call it mercy." Robert's eyes flashed. "They won't call it mercy when I'm done," he snarled. Barristan stepped closer, voice quiet. "Your Grace," he said, "we must be careful who we trust at Storm's End. The stormlords will hear every rumor." Robert's jaw clenched. "Let them," he growled. "They'll see me. They'll see my hammer. They'll remember the trident." Eddard felt the weight of the trident and wondered if men remembered glory or only fear of losing. A sailor called down the deck, wind shifting, course set, sails catching. The galley angled away from the city's glow and into deeper darkness. The sound of King's Landing faded, replaced by water and wind and the steady creak of wood. Robert's shoulders sagged for a heartbeat. The first time Eddard had seen him look tired without rage to hold him up. Then the king straightened again, stubborn, breathing hard. "I will take a new wife," Robert said abruptly, as if throwing the thought like a spear might make it true. "I will put true sons in the realm's mouth until they choke on them." Eddard's throat tightened. "You cannot marry while the queen lives," he said carefully. Robert's eyes burned. "Then she dies," he said, voice flat. Eddard felt the cold of it. "Not by your hand," he said. Robert's mouth twisted. "Not by my hand," he echoed, and Eddard could not tell whether it was agreement or resentment. They stood at the rail as the city vanished into mist. The galley carried them toward Storm's End, toward banners, toward war that would be fought in fields and halls and beds. Behind them, King's Landing still roared, still prayed, still chanted names. And Eddard Stark understood that leaving the city did not end its power. It merely gave the city time to decide what story it would tell about the king who sailed away. Storm's End greeted Robert with thunder, as if the castle itself approved of rage. The sea smashed against the cliffs below in endless violence. Wind screamed around the curtain wall. The great hall was warmed by braziers, but the warmth was the fierce heat of a fortress that knew it lived on the edge of storms. The stone here was older than Robert's crown and less forgiving. Stormlords gathered quickly when the king arrived, drawn by duty, curiosity, fear. Lord Estermont came from Greenstone with salt in his beard and worry in his eyes. Kin to Robert, and now caught between blood and chaos. Lords Caron and Swan arrived with mounted men and tight faces. Lord Tartha's banner appeared, blue field, sun and moon, bringing whispers of Brienne's name even if she was not present. Lesser lords filled the benches, muttering, weighing whether the king before them was the same one who had smashed Rhaegar or a broken man who had been made into rumor. Robert stood before them with his warhammer in hand. He did not sit. He did not ask politely for loyalty. He demanded it with his presence, and the Stormlords felt it the way men felt thunder in their bones. "I have been betrayed," Robert said, voice carrying, and the words were blunt enough to be honest. "Not by enemies alone, by my own house." Murmurs rippled. Men exchanged glances. Joffrey's name unspoken, Cersei's name whispered like a curse. Eddard stood at Robert's side, face grim. Barristan Selmy stood behind, white cloak like a final line of legitimacy. Robert's bandage showed through his cloak, stained at the edge. The king's wound was visible, and visibility in politics was weakness. So Robert used it as fuel. "My queen fled justice," he declared. "She hides behind gods and mobs. She and her bastard son have set King's Landing against me." His eyes burned. "I name Stannis Baratheon my heir until I take a new wife and produce trueborn sons." The hall shifted, uneasy. Some lords looked startled. Stannis was not loved. Some looked relieved law at least had been named. Some looked frightened because naming Stannis made war inevitable. Lord Estermont cleared his throat. "Your Grace," he said carefully. "The city says you are." Robert's head snapped. "Unwell," he snarled. "Mel, a butcher." He spat onto the stone. "The city says many things. The city said Ares was a god once." Silence tightened. Robert stepped closer to the Stormlords, hammer dragging slightly, the sound heavy. "You swore to me," he growled. "You bled for me. If you will not stand now, then you will kneel to lions and roses and prayers." Lord Caron's jaw clenched. "We stand," he said, voice tight, "but we need orders. The realm fractures." Eddard stepped forward, voice controlled. "We will call banners," he said. "Storm's End will be the king's seat until the capital is secured. Ravens go to every lord. Come to the king, or be named rebel." Lord Swan's eyes narrowed. "And Renly?" he asked. The name fell like a stone. Robert's face contorted with something like grief disguised as rage. "Renly fled," he said. "Renly ran to roses. If he raises banners against me, he is a traitor." A murmur rose. Some Stormlords looked uneasy. Renly had been popular. Renly had smiled. Men loved smiling kings. Barristan's voice was quiet and firm. "Popularity is not law," he said. and the words carried weight because Barristan had served 3 kings and outlived their popularity. Lord Estermont swallowed. "And Lord Tywin?" he asked. Robert's eyes burned. "Tywin will come," he growled. "He will come to save the realm from me. Let him." He lifted his hammer slightly, the head catching firelight. "I will meet him on ground where gold cannot buy a gate." Eddard felt the weight of those words. Ground where gold could not buy a gate did not exist. Gold always found a crack. But Storm's End was at least stone, at least wind, at least honest violence. They spent hours in council. Maps on tables, ravens sent, lords arguing about roads and supplies and loyalty. Eddard watched the stormlords' faces as they talked. Some were faithful, some were afraid. Some were already imagining which banner would win so they could claim they had always been loyal to it. When the council ended, thunder rolled outside like laughter. Robert stood alone for a moment by the hall's high doors, staring at the storm beyond as if it were a mirror. "I should have stayed," he whispered, voice rough. Eddard stepped close. "You would be dead," he said. Robert's mouth twisted. "Maybe," he muttered, "but at least my city would not be chanting my son's name." Eddard's throat tightened. "He is not your son," he said softly. Robert's eyes flashed, and pain cracked through. "He was," he whispered. For a while, the storm outside answered with another thunderclap, and Eddard Stark realized that war would not only be fought between banners. It would be fought inside the king's heart, where love and hatred had become indistinguishable. Dragonstone received Robert's proclamation like a knife laid neatly on a table. Stannis Baratheon read it twice without blinking. The candlelight did not soften his face. It sharpened it, every line of stubbornness carved deeper. Davos Seaworth stood beside him, hands clasped, watching the words land like blows. "He named you," Davos said quietly. Stannis's jaw clenched. "He named the law," he replied, and the bitterness in it was old. Robert had ignored law for years until law was the only shield left. Melisandre watched from the brazier's glow, red light painting her cheeks. Her eyes gleamed as if she could see the words burning on the page. "The stag falls," she murmured, "and the true king rises." Stannis's head snapped. "Enough," he said, voice cold. "My brother still lives." Melisandre's smile was faint. "For now," she whispered. Davos's mouth tightened. "If Robert lives, he is king," he said, and the simplicity of it was a rope Davos clung to. Stannis stared at the proclamation again. Cersei fled. Joffrey disinherited. Stannis named heir. The court relocated to Storm's End. A call for banners. A demand for obedience. The words were bold, desperate, and, most surprising, lawful. Stannis set the parchment down with careful precision. "He finally did what was required," he said. Davos blinked. "So you'll help him?" he asked, hope creeping in. Stannis's gaze was hard. "I will do my duty," he said. "If the realm is threatened by rebellion and false heirs, I will act." Davos exhaled. "Good," he murmured. Stannis's eyes narrowed. "Do not mistake me," he said. "Duty does not mean obedience to Robert's temper." He tapped the parchment. "He has put the realm in chaos. He has bled in public. He has made himself look weak." Melisandre stepped closer, voice soft. "He has made himself look doomed," she whispered. "And doom draws power." Stannis's jaw tightened. "My brother draws knives," he said. "That is all." Davos swallowed. "The knives are Lannister," he said, "and Tyrell, and men like Baelish." Stannis's gaze flicked to him, sharp. "Then we stop them," he said. Davos's heart lifted, then sank as Stannis continued. "We secure King's Landing," Stannis said, voice like stone. "Not for Robert's pride, for the realm. If the city crowns Joffrey, civil war follows. If Renly raises banners, civil war follows. If Tywin arrives with gold and steel, civil war follows." His eyes narrowed. "The capital must be held." Davos hesitated. By you, he said. Stannis did not deny it. By the rightful heir, he said. By law. Davos's mouth tightened. Robert might see that as a grab, he warned. Stannis's eyes were cold. Robert sees everything as a grab, he said. That is his failing. Melisandre's voice slipped in, honeyed. The flames show a city of smoke and a crown of iron, she murmured. A king who bleeds, a king who burns. Stannis ignored her, turning to Davos. Prepare the fleet, he ordered. Not for war against my brother, for war against chaos. Davos bowed his head. He said, though his gut tightened. Fleets did not sail for chaos. They sailed for thrones. Stannis looked out through the archway at the harbor below. Baratheon ships rocked at anchor, sails furled, men moving like ants along decks. The sea wind howled. Dragonstone's stone table waited beneath his hand like the map of a realm he believed should obey law. Stannis's voice was low. If Robert cannot hold the city, he said, I will. Davos's throat tightened. And if Robert stands against you? Stannis's eyes were flint. Then Robert stands against the law, he said. Melisandre smiled in the brazier's glow, as if she had just been handed the ending she wanted. And in the harbor, ships creaked and rocked, readying for a voyage that would decide whether Westeros would be ruled by blood, by law, or by whoever could convince the realm their violence was mercy. Renly crowned himself where the air smelled sweet enough to hide blood. It was not in a sept, not before gods, because Renly did not truly believe in gods. He believed in people, what they wanted, what they feared, what they would follow if you smiled at them the right way. Highgarden's rose garden gave him the perfect stage. Green hedges, torchlight, petals drifting like soft applause. Marjorie Tyrell stood beside him in green and gold, calm as a statue that had learned to breathe. Her eyes were bright and assessing. She looked less like a bride and more like a plan. Mace Tyrell knelt, heavy and eager, hands lifted as if offering the reach itself. Loras Tyrell knelt too, face fierce with devotion, as if kneeling were not submission but promise. Knights gathered around them with banners. Roses, foxes, cranes, stag and rose sigils already stitched in haste, as if men could sow destiny overnight. A maester held a parchment proclamation, ink still fresh. Renly lifted the crown of green roses and set it on his own head with a practiced solemnity that made men's hearts swell. The crown looked absurd and perfect at once, soft, living, and dangerous. In these dark days, the maester read, voice trembling with the thrill of speaking treason as righteousness. When King Robert Baratheon has proven himself unstable, violent, and unfit to rule, and when the realm cries for peace, Renly raised a hand, stopping the maester gently. He smiled at the gathered men as if they were his family. No, he said softly, do not speak ill of my brother. Mace blinked, confused. Loras's eyes softened with admiration. Renly's smile did not waver. Robert Baratheon is a great man, he said, a warrior who saved the realm from Aerys' madness. He paused, letting the words warm the air. But greatness is not the same as steadiness, and the realm needs steadiness now. Marjorie's gaze glittered. She understood the trick. Praise, then replacement. Make treason feel like kindness. Renly continued, voice gentle. The city riots. The faith trembles. The lions burn the riverlands. The king's court flees the capital, and the capital is left to mobs and knives. He spread his hands. I will not allow Westeros to be ruled by fear. A murmur of approval rose. Men wanted that. Men wanted someone to promise them safety without asking them to sacrifice pride. And Stannis? A knight called Voice Wary. Renly's smile turned faintly sad. Stannis is my brother too, he said. And he is lawful, yes. He tilted his head. But law without love is a noose. The realm will not be saved by a noose. More murmurs. Men laughed softly, uncomfortable but persuaded. Renly looked at Marjorie and then at the gathered banners. I do not seek this crown because I crave it, he lied smoothly. I accept it because the realm demands it. Mace Tyrell boomed approval. "The realm demands it." He shouted, and the knights echoed, caught up in the theater. Loras rose to his feet, eyes shining. "Lan, G live King Renly," he cried. The chant spread like fire through dry leaves. "Renly, Renly, Renly." Renly raised his hands, smiling as if humbled. He let them chant because chanting was the sound of a realm deciding. When the chant finally dipped, Renly turned to the maester. "Right," he said softly. "Right to the lords. Right to the city." His eyes sharpened. "Right that I offer peace to any man who joins me. Right that I will forgive those who have been misled by Robert's rage." Marjorie stepped closer, voice low enough that only he could hear. "And right that you will come to King's Landing," she murmured. "Soon." Renly's smile widened. "Yes," he whispered back. "Soon." Somewhere far away, Robert Baratheon stood in Storm's End's stone and thunder, calling banners with a hammer in hand. Somewhere far away, Stannis Baratheon prepared ships with law on his tongue. Here, in a garden of roses, Renly Baratheon wore a living crown and called his ambition mercy. And the Reach, fat with grain, heavy with gold, hungry for influence, knelt to him as if the gods themselves had chosen. King's Landing learned the taste of divided authority and liked it. At night, under low clouds that pressed the city down, the Great September of Baelor glowed with candlelight like a beacon. A procession moved behind the doors. Septa and Septons. The High Septon's pale face lifted. Prayers murmured like spells. Cersei walked in the center, unchained now, cloaked in sanctity. Joffrey walked beside her, head high, eyes bright. Outside, Jacelyn Bywater's gold cloaks held a line at the base of the steps, spears down, faces grim. They were not there to attack the September. They were there to stop the city from turning the Sept into a slaughterhouse. The crowd pressed close anyway, bodies packed, mouths chanting. J.O.F. Fry, J.O.F. Fry. The sound rolled through the streets like a drumbeat. Bywater stood at the front, one eye burning. He listened to the chant and felt the city's spine shifting. Once, the city had chanted Robert, when the rebellion was new and hope still tasted sweet. Now it chanted a boy's name like a replacement tooth. A gold cloak captain stepped close, voice tight. "They're coming," he murmured. "Who?" Bywater asked, though he already knew. At the gate near the river, riders arrived under a half-hidden banner. Red and gold folded quickly, as if men could hide a lion's roar with cloth. They wore plain cloaks over mail. Their horses were fresh. Their faces were hard. Lannister envoys, or Lannister scouts, or Lannister daggers with polite words. They spoke to the gate guard quietly. Purse changed hands. The gate guard's posture shifted subtle, but Bywater saw it. Coin moved faster than orders. Bywater's jaw tightened. He barked an order, and two gold cloaks moved toward the gate at a brisk pace. Spears angled. The city did not like being watched. The city liked watching. On the Sept steps, the High Septon raised his hands and the crowd quieted in ragged waves. "My children," he called, voice trembling. "The Queen has sought sanctuary. The gods have granted it. Any man who violates the gods' house violates the Seven." A roar of approval surged. Men loved being told their hunger was holy. Cersei lifted her chin slightly, letting candlelight paint her face in warm sanctity. She looked like a martyr who had never done wrong in her life. Joffrey stood beside her, eyes bright, absorbing the chant like wine. Bywater watched and felt the city turning against the king who had left. Robert's decree had been nailed to doors by Bywater's men. Proclamation of treason, disinheritance, summons to Storm's End. People tore it down and spat on it, or pretended not to see it, or used it to wrap fish. Words died quickly in King's Landing unless they were sung by mobs. A voice rose near the front of the crowd, sharp, male. "Where is the king?" Someone shouted. "Why does he run?" Another voice answered. "He's mad." A third voice screamed, "Stannis," and another screamed, "Renly," and the names tangled like fighting dogs. Bywater's one eye narrowed. He see. Old feel 3 storms moving toward the capital. A lion's gold, a rose's charm, a stag's law, and somewhere between them, Robert Baratheon's hammer waited, far away, in Storm's End's thunder. A gold cloak near the gate returned, face pale. "Captain," he murmured. "They say they bring word from Lord Tywin Lannister. They say they come to protect the Queen." Bywater's mouth tightened. "Of course they do," he said. The crowd roared again as Cersei lifted her hands, palms open, and spoke softly into the night. Her voice carried by the Sept stones and the High Septon's approval. "My people," she called, "do not fear. The gods will guide the realm to peace." The crowd ate it like bread. Bywater looked at the candlelit queen and felt the cold truth. She had escaped chains only to put the city in chains of belief, and belief was stronger than iron. He turned to his men, voice hard. "Hold," he commanded. "No matter what they chant, no matter what banners arrive, we hold." A gold cloak muttered. "For the king!" Bywater's one eye burned. "For the city," he said, "because if we don't, the city will crown whoever kills it slowest." Behind him, King's Landing's distant streets flickered with fires, and the wind carried the smell of smoke like the first breath of a larger war. Somewhere in the dark beyond the walls, ravens flew. Toward Storm's End, toward Dragonstone, toward Highgarden, toward armies gathering under different promises. And in the capital, under candlelight and chanting, Cersei Lannister smiled like a woman who had finally escaped the last thing that ever truly threatened her. A lawful king. Now there were only kings of story left. And stories, once the city believed them, were nearly impossible to kill.